Hi, and welcome to John's Comics with Kids. I have so many people doing great subscriber contests right now, and I'm having a really hard time keeping up with them all. And I don't want to do one of those videos where you piece a bunch of them together and kind of just call it one video, so I'm not going to. So if I don't get to yours, I am super sorry. It's hard to fit them all in. And I only prioritize based on what's going to entertain me, because that's the whole point of my channel is if I'm not entertained, nothing else matters. And the second I saw this Tony Sanders 250 subscriber contest where he asked me to show 25 comics, the wheels started turning. Because it was so open-ended, I thought, well, how am I going to make this work? Like 25 comics, what am I? And then instantly it started being like, do I have any sets of 25 issues in a row? 25 comics in a run? Then I thought, okay, let's go through and see how many of those I had. I had several of them, more than I thought I would. And then I was like, which one? Now I've talked a little bit about these X-Men books. So I've talked a little about it. I found a run, not only of 25, I found a run of 50 books, I think 51 books that I was like, dang, I got to pull out of this. And of course it belonged to this incredible series of books called 100 Bullets. I've talked about 100 Bullets before in my 50 greatest storylines that I own. I included the very original story. The truth is, I could have pulled a bunch of different storylines out of 100 Bullets. It's one of my all-time favorite comics. There's only 100 issues. It's very easy to get caught up on it. They have a beginning, middle, and end. It's already finished, like Y the Last Man. They really had a story, and then they finished. It's certainly in the world of crime, but for me, it's far more of like this wonderful, slow-evolving epic, and I compare it to Lost a lot as far as having an event in the present and then a lot of backstory that you're slowly getting filled in on, and little by little the pieces start interconnecting and it starts to be fantastically interesting. The main piece that you need to know to understand, because I'm going to jump right into the middle at issue 50, you got to understand that there's two main components to the story. You have these crime families, because it's all about organized crime. And the crime families are called the Trust, and they are organized crime across the globe, but mostly in the U.S. And then you have this group trying to keep the peace between all of these families, and they're called the Minutemen. And the Minutemen are run by Agent Graves, and then there's Mr. Shepard, who is working with him. Now, most of the individual issues center on Agent Graves handing out briefcases with 100 bullets and a gun, and offering free revenge to an individual. And the storylines are scattered across the globe, but mostly in the U.S., the continental U.S., and you kind of get a great glimpse of all these different locations. I'm going to jump us into the middle of the storyline. As all these pieces start coming together and all these characters start meeting up with one another, the story really takes a huge jump in number 50. Issue 50 has to do with introducing a new character we've never met before, who will continue to become very important later on. His name is Victor Ray. And Victor Ray is sitting in a bar in the middle of the day because he was just involved with a robbery and they're waiting for everybody to show up back at the meetup. But he starts telling this story about the Roanoke colony. And it's just, this is easily the greatest issue that 100 Bullets produced. It is all in one episode, like one issue. They captured the entire drama of the story, and it's all Victor Ray just telling a story and meanwhile waiting to see who's going to knock on the door of this bar. Is it going to be the cops? Is it going to be the last members of their crew? What went down? It's almost like a Reservoir Dogs kind of thing. In fact, a lot of these comics remind me a whole bunch of Tarantino. It ends incredibly violently, but it sets up all these great new elements that are going to be the second half of 100 Bullets. Specifically, this character, Victor Ray, who plays an incredible part going forward. The other portion of this particular trade, which collects issues 50 through 58, involves my favorite storyline outside of the original. And that story is with this character, Wiley Times. And Wiley's got a great name. And up to issue 50, he really had he was a gas station attendant. And he was a coyote helping sneak people across the border. But it seemed like there was more to who he really was. But he was running away from his past. Well, now he's in New Orleans. And this story is unbelievable, both in its violence. There's a whole sequence with a bear trap that I can't even get into, but also just in the ways that it peels back this character of Wiley Times, who becomes ultimately one of my all-time favorite characters in the series. I can't say enough about these covers. They're wonderfully abstract pieces, and of course it's New Orleans. Everything is like jazz. Everything has this sort of bluesy jazz feel to it. And you get all these great pieces where they're really just, I mean, this one is amazing. You got the voodoo doll, you got the crazy voodoo face. It's all this great negative space stuff. Just super cool stuff. And this one is just dope. Look at the way they use the negative space of her outfit, the background. They use this crazy red bordering on them. It's just so killer. And Wiley goes through this amazing story where he finally has to face his past. It's unbelievable. And then it culminates in issue 58 where, they really take what should be a very simple standalone issue of the comic and shock you with a piece of violence that you do not see coming and that plays out in such an important way for the rest of the book. So the second trade in this story of these 25 issues that I'm talking about is called Strychnine Lives, and it involves a lot of those characters that you thought were dead and kind of given up on, and they're starting to come back into the fold and be valuable again. One of the things I love most about these comics is the way that you can tell these writers, Azzarello, and these artists, Rizzo, spent a lot of time thinking about these things. It was not just one issue, pump them out, pump them out. They really had an end game in mind, a long-term vision for what they were trying to do, and they really thought things through, including even the names of their trades. Each of the trades has a fun play on the number that it is. For example, I just showed you trade number 8. It's called The Hard Way. And for anyone who knows gambling, 8 is the hard way when you roll 2 4s in gambling. So this is like a comment on gambling and what they're risking. So this is The Hard Way. It's issue 8. Of course, this is Strychnine Lives, dealing with, it's a fun play on words with the nines. I learned recently, one of the ones I couldn't figure out for the longest time is the last one, trade number 13, is called Wilt. And I couldn't figure out it. I figured, it obviously had to do with dying and the end and wilting away to nothing. But then I realized, and I'm not a sports guy, so it might have just taken me a little while longer, Wilt Chamberlain's number in basketball was 13. It's just those kind of fun things. You can tell they were thinking these things through from the beginning. So the last one that I'm going to share with you in this set of 25 issues is called Decayed. This storyline has to do with some characters that had run away from themselves and thought they were out of the game, being suckered back into it. And of course, the briefcases are always being handed out. In this case, the storyline involves a pair of twins. And you can't tell, did the correct twin get the briefcase, or is it possible both of them needed a case? It's a wonderful back and forth between those characters. It's just a really great set of issues. These 25 are probably among my all-time favorite comic books ever. I didn't fit them in my top 50 storylines because I felt I needed to give respect to the first set of stories that were part of 100 Bullets, those first few issues. But once you're into 100 Bullets in any way, these are the stories where it's the best. Looking at issues 50 through 58, this is like, it changes the game for these stories. So this is a big thank you to Tony Sanders for coming up with a fun idea. I really appreciate it. I don't know if you meant me to take it this way, but that's exactly how I wanted to take it. I recommend 100 Bullets wholeheartedly if you've never tried it. It's 13 trades, but I sent 2 of them to Ryan, and I know he's been devouring them, but you can just get the first few and really get what it's all about, and I've never been disappointed by it. Every time I've gotten another reading, another chance to enjoy, it's like another layer of understanding comes to me. So congrats on your 250, Tony Sanders, and thank you for the contest. Don't forget, you should subscribe to my channel if you can. Like what you're watching right now because you watched all the way to the end, and then leave a comment about if you've read any of these or if you've got 25 issues in a run that you were like, wow, I really should recommend these to somebody else. Recommend them to me. Thanks, guys.